You're watching the Football Outlet Show. Go Good evening and a very warm welcome to, indeed, the Football Out West Show, and a big shout out to the Werribee City Ultras, the Werribee Boys as they are called, and they introduced us today in a very, very fitting manner. Good evening, welcome after a mid-season break back to the Football Out West Show. My name's Tonchi Prusak, and above me we've got Craig and Steve. How are we, gentlemen?
Very well, Steve. Tonch, very well. Very well. You, Steve?
Very well, thanks. It's good to be on the Football Out West Show again, the show that we won't miss any goals on due to advertisements for takeaway hamburgers. So that's all we can promise.
Steve, you and I were out at Galvin Park yesterday for quite an eventful game, even though there's only one goal for an NPL 2 game between Werribee City and Moreland City. And some magnificent new club rooms there at Galvin Park, multi-million-dollar facility. And as we said, a big shout out to the Werribee Ultras, the Werribee Boys. They certainly made our day very, very. It was very nice to meet some of the punters, some of the fans out there. So if you're tuning in and you're one of those young lads, do drop us a line in the comment section. To our big sponsor, major sponsor this year, as is and has been all year, is Caroline Springs George Cross Football Club, home of the magnificent Georgies on Vista Bistro. And Craig, we've got a big show lined up tonight. We've had a 2-week midweek break to energise ourselves and charge the batteries. And mate, who have we got lined up in tonight's show?
Yeah, another good one tonight. It's we've got Jeff Hopkins, the head coach of the Women's A-League team at Melbourne Victory, and then we have Leah Blaney, who's the under-20s Young Matildas head coach, who are we're pretty excited because they're off to a World Cup in August. So we'll have a good chat to her about the up-and-coming Young Matildas, given that it's the World Cup in just under a year's time, or just over a year's time. And joining us before that in this part of the show will be the new head coach at FC Strathmore Split, Micky Colina, who's recently departed the Dandenong City job. So
yes, he'll give us a very good assessment, if we like, a mid-season assessment of the NPL. And I guess he can do it now as an objective observer, not as a coach participating. But Steve, you've had a very, very busy weekend, haven't you? Lots of football, lots of commentating, and I believe you're moving house as well. How was that all going?
Yeah, well, not me myself, but I helped one of my mates move house today. So it was a big adventure on top of the cross-country club teams race this morning, as well as calling with your good self yesterday afternoon and catching a bit of the A-League finals action as well.
How did you get on in the cross-country, mate? Did you get a sash this weekend?
Didn't get one this week. We got, I think we got 6th place in the teams race. So it was a good effort by Team 3. We did our best. We just didn't quite make that podium place.
Yeah, nobody remembers who comes 6th, Steve.
That's right. Move on to next week.
Yeah. Now, gentlemen, we've got a massive show tonight. As we said, it's going to be huge. We cannot wait. And also, there's so much news to get through. So, folks, if you're not familiar with the concept of our show, the first 45 minutes, it's the extra time. We look at the results over the weekend, and we've got a lot of A-League, and we've also got FA Cup to talk about, as well as the NPL, the NPLW, state leagues. It's all happening. So we're going to take a very, very short break. And when we do return, we're going to get straight into the news desk. It's the Football Out West Show, episode 88.
Looking for a space for your next function? At George's on Vista, our function room caters for all types of functions. Milestone birthdays, special religious occasions, work functions, hens or bachelor nights, baby showers, or whatever reason you decide is a good idea to get together with family and friends. Contact our friendly staff who will help you put together a menu that will suit your special occasion. Inquiries can be made via our website, georgesonvista.com.au. George's on Vista, in the heart of Fraser Rise. You'll find us at Caroline Springs, George Cross.
The camera was trying to catch us picking our noses or doing something like that, but it wasn't the case to be. Steve, let's start off with the news desk. A lot happening.
Oh, yeah. Where do we start tonight? Where can we start? Will we start with local competitions, or do you want to start further abroad?
Shall we
start with the A-League, is it, from last night?
Yeah, we had the A-League. We had Western United and Adelaide United getting through the elimination final, so that sets up some exciting two-legged semis coming up this midweek and next weekend, with Melbourne Victory and Western United and Melbourne City and Adelaide United to come this week. So, yeah, it's exciting stuff. There we go. We got it on the screen there as well if you're watching the visual component of the show. So Western United, Alexander Prijovic scoring against the Wellington Phoenix last night. That was enough. It was pretty on brand for Western United to get a 1-0 win in the finals, I thought, after they did that so many times in the regular season.
6, I think, Steve. 6 times in the regular season, yeah.
Maybe they can get a couple more before the year's out. Let's see if they can.
Did anybody watch the game?
Sorry,
I watched bits and pieces, I must admit. I watched bits and pieces. I was coming back from, I was actually covering a game down at Stead Park, an NPL 3 game between Geelong and Doveton. A thrilling game. It was an absolutely pulsating game. And then I came and watched the A-League and I almost fell asleep. No, that's not true.
I have to say, Jamie Young saving the latter part of the game, if anybody hasn't seen it, was magnificent.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the saves were incredible. And it was labelled, I think, the Football Australia, or whatever the Australian Professional Leagues labelled it a 1-goal thriller. And indeed it was, because Jamie Young absolutely made it. 36, the custodian's 36 years of age, still going strong, like all good goalkeepers. They always seem to mature a little bit later on. But big week now, Melbourne Victory. Steve, can they do it? Can Western United beat the in-form Melbourne Victory?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, they're very much an informed team, and I think the quality and the depth that they have at Victory at the moment should see them get through against a Western United side that's a little bit injury hit at the moment. And again, we saw the makeshift defence last night with Rene Krhin, the central midfielder, starting in central defence, whereas Melbourne Victory, they seem to be hitting their straps at the right time, and they're getting goals with key players like D'Agostino's goal against Sydney FC last week. A sensational solo effort sums up where they're at the moment, and they're going along very nicely. So it's certainly, Melbourne Victories to lose if they do happen to go down in that one, I think.
Yeah, so
I agree with you there, and the injuries are going to be a problem for them as Krhin went down yesterday with a hamstring. So, I think Victory are probably in driving seat, but you never know. It is Cup football, and I'm sure Western United will leave everything on the field next week.
Now it's a two-legged affair. So Western United taking on Melbourne Victory on Tuesday night at Amy Park, and then again on Saturday night at the unusual time of 5:15 p.m. And we'll chat about that a bit later on. And then Adelaide United hosting Melbourne City on Wednesday night, and then their return leg is going to be on Sunday at the equally unusual time of 2:00 in the afternoon. There at Amy Park. Gents, first of all, Craig, over to you. Is that a wise thing, or why did they schedule like so early on a Saturday night? There's no Friday night games.
Election coverage.
Bugger the election. Who wants?
Yeah, it's the election coverage.
You reckon that's the reason, though?
Well,
it definitely is. Yeah. Yeah, as you
What
say,
about-
maybe they could have looked at having it on Friday. Is that too much of
And
a tight
Sunday.
time frame from Tuesday? Maybe it's a bit much, but I don't think they booked the stadium for Friday perhaps as well.
Yeah, but you've got to think of, nobody who's playing community football.
Yeah.
So anybody that's playing NPL, anybody that's
Exactly.
playing community football, they're not going to go and watch. So seems a bit of a daft time, but I suppose they're governed by other things as well, out of their control. But it does seem a bit of a strange time to kick off a game. Yeah.
Well, it's good to see a lot of comments happening, and Craig, your commentating partner from the weekend, Alex Sivkorowski. Big shout out to Alex. Says midweek finals games. Does the A-League ever think about the fans? Mate, I kind of tend to agree with him. And then Brenton Ray says, how really stupid are the APL scheduling the semi-final second leg between. Well, here we go. Let's pop that up on the screen. Brenton Ray, he's the man of the moment. He always comes through with the goods.
He's been pretty angry about this all week, Brenton.
He's been, don't mention the V. And don't mention the V line, for Christ's sake.
No V line all weekend from Geelong this weekend gone. It's been a tough time.
Poor Brenton, he's had a rough week, I tell you what, that's for sure. But he says, back to his comment, how really stupid are the APL scheduling the semi-final second leg between Melbourne Victory and Western United at Amy Park next Saturday, 5:15 p.m. Really stupid, where many supporters got local football commitments till 5
Now he's got a massive challenge on, hasn't he? Because he's a massive Hoppers Crossing fan as well.
He's got to get from Hoppers' game to Amy Park in 15 minutes. That's going to be tough.
Hoppers doing a remarkable job at the moment in State League 2, looking really, really good. So, absolutely. Now, Jeds, the FA Cup was played overnight. There's the before photo and there's the after photo. So for all you Liverpool fans, I think you're going to be very, very happy about it. 0-0 went to penalties and Liverpool prevailed on penalties. All right, the big question, did anyone watch it last night?
No.
No.
I'm sure someone in the comments has watched it last night. Brenton Ray, he's a big Liverpool fan. He would have been at the pub watching it last night.
There is just so much going on at the moment. I don't know about you guys. I know, Steve, you had an early morning commitment this morning, as did I. I had to be up at like 7 o'clock and be at the ground at 9 o'clock. It was just never going to happen, you know. Just so much happening. We've got A-League finals, we've got the FA Cup finals, we've got football galore here locally. Craig, what was your excuse?
Sleep.
It doesn't help since they pushed it back.
You don't look this beautiful, mate, without having your. You don't look this nice without having your sleep, mate. So I got to have my 9 hours. I'll watch it over the weekend, over the week.
Yeah. It just doesn't help since they pushed it back. It used to be that 3 o'clock kickoff British time, midnight for us. You can sort of, you're still up at 11:30. You think, I'll just sit up till 12, and you'll start watching it. And putting it back, a couple of hours later is not ideal. Unless your team is in it and you love your team, you're not going to tune in, I think.
Nah. They've won everything anyway, haven't they, according to all the Liverpool fans? There's nothing else.
I think they've won everything. And poor old Chelsea, that's 3 FA Cup losses in 3 years as well.
They're having a tough time of it at the moment, aren't they?
Now, lots, as we said, lots happening. There's a heap of that going on. But all right, let's touch base on another Australian overseas at the moment doing very, very well, or a bunch of Australians, or a pair of Australians at Glasgow Celtic. Ange Postecoglou, he's brought glory to the green part of Glasgow, and Tom Rogic was substituted in his final game for Celtic. And there's some emotional scenes thanks to courtesy of ABC Sport. Emotional Tom Rogic given a standing ovation by Celtic fans when subbed off in the final game for club. Now, Craig, apparently on Friday night, was it, when South Melbourne took on Avondale? What a game that was in the NPL. There was a pretty large contingent of Celtic fans that were present, paying homage to the place where it all started for Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah, there was, and we'll touch on the NPL, the game itself. But I think they were inviting everybody to wear their Celtic shirts, and everybody that got in wore their Celtic shirt got in for free. So that was a good initiative there from South Melbourne to worship the Holy One, as I've heard him say a few times. But you got to remember, guys, he's won the pub league, so let's be realistic as well.
Now, Brenton Ray's popped in and he's mentioned something about the V-line. Shall we pop that comment
He couldn't go to the pub because of the V-line cancellation. Had to watch it at home.
Good Lord, does V-line know what? That's it. Sack them all. Sack them all. Brenton,
They turn off the V-line, Geelong line when there's a Cats game in Melbourne, the A-League finals, the Melbourne Rebels, the FA Cup final, all this going on, and no V-line.
What is happening to this state? I do
it's
not
like they're
know.
winding us up.
How dare they do that? Oh, well. Anyway, folks, we're going to move on straight to the NPL Victoria competition. Geez, it is what a Friday night blockbuster. What an absolute cracker of a game it was. Craig, take us through it because you watched most of this game.
I watched, all of it. In fact, it was an unbelievable game. For those that haven't watched it, South Melbourne, 3-0 down and came back to win the game 4-3. It was just an unbelievable capitulation, I suppose, from Avondale, who at 3-0 were sailing and comfortable. And then South Melbourne scored, and that was it. It was the floodgates open, and every time South Melbourne went forward, they looked as if they could score. In fact, the commentators on MPL TV couldn't control themselves. I had to turn it down at one point because my ears were bleeding. So, but a fantastic performance from South Melbourne, and some questions probably asked afterwards from Zocchi and his charges from Avondale, but it was a very under par performance when they got their 3-0 up. It's not Avondale like, shall we say?
Yeah, that actual ladder doesn't take into account the South Melbourne Avondale score. For whatever reason, that hasn't been updated on the Football Victoria side. So South Melbourne have jumped up to 34 points now. Oakley Cannons are still in second spot. They do have a game in hand. And the other game that was played earlier today, Heidelberg United, Eastern Lions 2-2, that also hasn't been factored, nor has the game that was you were at, Craig, earlier tonight commentating. Tell us about that game, St Albans and Altona Magic.
Yeah, I was. I was at Churchill Reserve with Alex Sikorowski this afternoon, commentating that game, and yeah, it was a cracking game. Altona Magic coming out 4-0 winners against St Albans Saints in a game they dominated from the first whistle. Scored an early goal, which settled them. And probably could have had another 3 goals. Certainly a header from Werndl in the first half, and then 2 opportunities in the second half, one from Tommy Semi and another from Werndl. The score could have been 7, easy today. St Albans couldn't put a pass together, found it a real struggle, but I have to say it's probably the best I've seen Altona play this year, and we've covered them a number of times, Steve, and I think we've always said that they've played some great football, but they struggle in front of goals. But tonight they were on fire. They were on fire. John Strzewski scored from a corner. So when John Strzewski scores from a corner, you know the luck's with you.
Absolutely.
Steve, did you take any of the NPL games during the week? Were you commentating at any of the NPL games? I know you're commentating NPL too, and we'll get onto that shortly. But did you watch any of the NPL games
it's
this
just
week?
All about the NPL 2 this weekend, Tom. So looking forward to catching up on that great publication. And if you don't watch it, extra time on NPL TV. If you do miss these games, that's the best way to catch up on the highlights in a nice compressed package.
How good is that?
It's a really, really polished product, that one. So I'll be catching up with some of the goals on that, because it has, as we said earlier, it's been a very busy weekend.
I did see the parts of the Green Gully game as well, who are now up to 3rd place after defeating Dandenong Thunder in a convincing 3-0 win again. So they're doing very, very well at the moment. Gully up there in 3rd place. And big game this weekend, Steve. Oakley Cannons are travelling to Green Gully Reserve to take on Gully in a 2nd versus 3rd. That should be a cracker.
That must be the game of the round there, Craig. Looking forward to seeing who can come out on top and prevail in that one. And Green Gully were looking a little bit stodgy a few weeks ago. Well, Alex Salmon's back from injury, and now they really hit their straps. Green Gully looking quite good, and the Cannons have been going well for some weeks as well, since particularly when they knocked off South Melbourne on the Easter Monday. There's
some big derby games happening in round 14 next weekend. Friday night, Melbourne Knights taking on Dandenong City in the big Croatian derby. We'll be talking to our special guest, former Dandenong City coach, Micky Colina, who is now the coach of FC Strathmore. He'll give us a good insight into that game, because the last time these two sides met, Melbourne Knights absolutely walloped Dandenong City 5-0. The Knights now find themselves in 11th spot on the ladder after today's result, and Dandenong City in 12th. Then we've got some games on Saturday. St Albans hosting Port Melbourne, Eastern Lions hosting Dandenong Thunder, Hume City at home to Altona Magic, and then 7:45 p.m. game between Bentley Greens and Avondale. Now that's another Craig, another game, 5th versus 6th. In effect, the team that loses this will lose touch with the top 4, won't they? This is a real must-win game for both Avondale and Bentley Greens. Oh, we've lost Craig. We've lost his audio.
Yeah, well, it's an important game. The thing about this time of the season as well, Tonchi, is now everyone's played everyone once, and it's back to that repeat of the first round fixtures. So there's scores to settle from what happened back in round 1 now that the teams have got 13 games under their belt in the home and away season, and they're hitting form, and it's now coming into that business end of the season where the finals are decided. Relegation will be tough to avoid for teams at the bottom end, and that championship is up for grabs as well. And funnily enough, in that retrospective 2021 season that's going on at the moment, I'm hearing that Oakley has now overtaken Avondale in that, and Avondale being the team that had pressed hard for that. So I don't look at that ladder too much because it doesn't resonate with me too much, but it's interesting that Oakley is now leading that retrospective tally now in the 2021. So that'll be decided soon.
Yeah,
Craig,
they've been very strong as well, haven't they, Avondale? Oakley. Chris Taylor's built a very, very good squad, as Chris Taylor does. And they're, as you said, Steve, they've taken over from Avondale. So as Mark Sultana says in the comments there, then they're not going to win the 2021 season either. So look, down the bottom, it's all to play for, isn't it? There's a probably a must-win for Eastern Lions this afternoon against Heidelberg, and they managed to get a point. Hume City have appointed Goran Lozanovsky as their new coach, and he'll be going in looking to transform things in the second half of the season.
Yeah, so it's going to be very, very close. And then the big one, the Greek derby, the original Greek derby, Heidelberg United taking on South Melbourne at Olympic Village. Heidelberg are slowly kind of inching their way up, but not at the rate they'd like to. But that, when those two teams meet, the form book does go out the window. But South are just looking very formidable at the moment. Steve, an NPL 2 time. Give us a rundown of what's happened in the NPL 2.
NPL 2. Well, you and I got out to a game yesterday in the NPL 2, which was very exciting, as we mentioned earlier, we touched on earlier, and it was a singular moment in the game. Fletcher Fulton, our favourite Tasmanian, our favourite footballer from Launceston, who's made the trip from the Apple Isle across here for university. He's came in and scored. I think that was his 4th goal in the NPL 2 this season to get Moreland City a 1-0 win. Earlier in the weekend, Pascoe Vale 1-0 winners over FC Bulleen Lions at CB Smith Reserve on Friday night. And some of those other results that have come in, Kingston City 1, North Geelong Warriors 3. So a big result there for the table-topping team in the later kickoff on Saturday. There was also a big win for Lang Warren, who travelled to John McEwen Reserve to play the Goulburn Valley Suns. And I'm just missing a couple of other results here on Sports TG, which is annoying, but I might be able to find them on Google Sports, actually. They are on Google Sports, yes. Yeah,
North Geelong 3-1 over Kingston. Northcote City defeated Manningham 3-0. Lang Warren 6-1 winners over Goulburn. Moreland Zebras 1-0 over Brunswick City. And as you mentioned, Steve, Moreland City 1-0 winners over Werribee City. So North Geelong looking really good at the top. They're in great form. Caleb Mikulich, the leading goal scorer, I think he's got something like 11 goals so far this season. He's in very, very good form at the moment. They've got some very exciting young players, and they're looking good. Now, they've got a big, big game coming up this weekend up against Bulleen Lions, third place Bulleen Lions. A very important game, that one. That's going to be at the David Barrows Stadium on Saturday, I believe, actually. Yep.
Yeah, spoke to Stuart Beggs this morning, as I do most weekends, and he wasn't, even though they won 3-1, he wasn't very happy with their performance, which is always a sign of a good coach. Even when you win 3-1 away from home, you're not happy. So they're doing great. It's great to see them at the top because they've got some fantastic young kids coming through.
Now, Moreland City taking on Pascoe Vale. That's at Campbell Reserve on Saturday. So second versus fourth. It's almost like a top four finals. First versus third, second versus fourth. That's going to be a very, very big, important game for Moreland City, Steve. We saw yesterday, Moreland City really needed that win if they wanted to stay in touch with North Geelong Warriors, because the news was coming through at the ground that at one stage North Geelong Warriors was 3-0 up, and that was, I think, half time. Very important that Moreland City, if they want to keep in touch with the leaders there, and on this occasion North Geelong Warriors, they keep picking up points. But a dangerous game against Pascoe Vale. Pascoe Vale, won against Bulleen Lions. They're unlucky to lose against North Geelong a few weeks before that. Actually, North Geelong deserved that. Well, let's be honest. But Pascoe Vale have got a game in hand against Kingston City. They could quite easily jump up into third spot, I believe. So a lot happening in NPL 2.
Yeah, it's an exciting league. It's a very exciting league. So anything could happen. And I think we've got North Geelong and Moreland City playing each other in a couple of weeks too. So that should be a beauty when that takes place. So should we look at the NPL 3 now?
Yeah, let's go along to the NPL 3. Steve.
All right, so some of those results there. Friday night at BT Connor, Preston Lions 1, Melbourne City 1. Box Hill United getting a win 2-1 over Whittlesea Rangers. 0-0 between the North Sunshine Eagles and Melbourne Victory at Larissa Reserve. Geelong Soccer Club getting a 2-1 win over Doveton with Vedran Stojovic in good form. And a couple of other results there, just chasing up Nunawading City and Springvale White Eagles, and the Ballarat City Western United score don't have.
Yeah, Springvale White Eagles defeated Nunawading City 4-2. Thanks to Michael Long letting me know earlier today. And Brenton Ray, thank you very much for letting us know. Western United also defeated Ballarat City. I think it was 2-0. Brenton, is that right? I can't remember exact score there, but I think it was 2-0. So Western United actually do jump up into fourth spot, pushing Geelong down to fifth spot. But Geelong have been coming slowly moving their way up the competition standings. Like I said, I was at that game between Geelong and Doveton, an 85th minute winner by Jaden Iliovsky after he was fed the ball, and assist by Vedran Stojanovic, who scored the first goal, and he scored the last week's both goals. So he's on fire, the big man up front. And look out, Geelong are starting to really click. But above them, you've got the 3 A-League clubs, Western United, Melbourne Victory, and Melbourne City, as well as the Preston Lions. So
and it was 4-1 for Western United over
4-1.
Ballarat at Moorshead Park on Saturday. So big win there for the young green
Craig,
and black.
Let's have a quick look at the NPLW competition. Now we don't know too many the results of the games played earlier today, but that's the ladder as it stood just before today's round of matches. The score.
Yeah, I've actually got some of the results here, Tonchi. We've got
Box Hill. Yep, let's go through that.
Box Hill United lost 2-0 at home to South Melbourne. That was on Friday evening. Yesterday afternoon, actually played at Kilo Park. I was actually there on the pitch next to us. Calder United defeated Alamein 2-0. Heidelberg 3, FC Bulleen Lions 0, and Bayside United 0. F Football Federation Emerging 4.
Well, there you go. There's the ladder now after the completion of round 7. Heidelberg United sitting pretty on top, followed by Calder United, or should we say Western United Women in drag, and Bulleen Lions in third spot, Alamein in fourth spot. Steve, have you got the fixture there for the NPL women's competition for next week? We can go through some of those games that are happening in round 8.
Next Saturday for round 8, Alamein will host FV Emerging at Dorothy Laver West Reserve. Calder United versus Box Hill United at Kilo Park. Also, both of those games at 3 p.m. At 3:30 on Saturday at Kingston Heath, it's Bayside United against Heidelberg United. And on Monday night, next Monday night, not tomorrow night, Monday night, FC Bulleen Lions versus South Melbourne at the Veneto Club in Bulleen. That should be a cracker under lights there on next Monday night, Monday week.
Monday night football at Bulleen. I reckon that is a great venue to have Monday night football.
Absolutely.
It's nice and relatively central, and facilities are absolutely second to none. So that's a Monday night football next weekend to look forward to, or next Monday week, as you mentioned, Steve. Craig, let's have a quick look at VPLW. So there is talk, whether this is true or not. I'm hearing some rumours that the top 4 teams from VPLW could be being promoted to next year's expanded NPLW competition. So there's a 10-team competition there, the VPLW, as we look at some of the results that are coming through. Most of the games having been played, obviously, today. So we get some of the results. We don't get all of the results. But have you got any of the results of any of the games played earlier today?
Yeah, I'm just looking. I can't find them. So, unfortunately, I haven't got them at the moment, Ange.
We've got Whitehorse United 3, Eltham Redbacks 1. That was on Friday night, and earlier today, Southern United 3-1 over the Melbourne Knights. That was a 3:30 game. Don't have the others there, so not submitted yet.
Going back to your comment about the top 4 going up. I think it's needed. If you look at the previous table, 8 teams in the top echelons of the women's game here in Victoria is not good enough.
No, definitely not.
And there's definitely needs to be even the VPL. 10 teams is not enough. So they need to make changes. And if that makes it a 12-team tournament next year, then that's all the better for women's football.
Yeah, I totally agree there. I mean, look, at the end of the day, you need to have a decent competition. I mean, 8 teams is not a decent competition. And look, the teams there at the top of the standings there: Preston, Boroondara, Carey Eagles, even Geelong Galaxy this year having a very, very good run, as is South Yarra. So those 4 teams, I think, would be more than competitive up in the very top tier of the competition. And then there's going to be a flow-on effect, gents. After that, you'll have State League 1 moving up to VPLW, State 2 moving up to State 1, etc. And it has to happen. It really, really needs to happen.
You need to get the same. We talk about it all the time, Tonch. You have to have the best players playing against the best players. Now, the only way you're going to get better and improve any game is if you've got the best versus the best. And at the moment, it's not that, is it? So we've got a group of 8 games, 16 games throughout the season. That's nowhere near enough for any football team to develop their players.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking ahead to next week, we've got the fixtures as well. There's a couple of Saturday games and then some Sunday games in the VPLW. There's a big one down in Geelong going to happen on Saturday night down at Hume Reserve, home of the Corio Soccer Club. Geelong Galaxy are actually taking on Preston Lions at 5:15 p.m. kickoff. And that is actually going to be the main game. The curtain raiser to that will be the State League 1 clash. Corio taking on, I can't remember. We've got Santino Mamone watching. He's a big Corio supporter. Santino, let us know who Corio is playing. And I know they are playing at 2:15 p.m., I think. So they're actually shifting the men's game earlier to an earlier
Sydenham Park. They got
Sydenham Park. There you go.
Yep.
So, you're going to have two Macedonian community-backed teams, one of the men, one of the women, there at Hume Reserve next Tuesday. So that's going next Saturday. Huge occasion that's going to be. I guess it's going to be running head-to-head with the A-League final. But, I'm sure that'll still attract a big crowd. But you'll be able to watch the A-League final in the lavish new Hume Reserve club rooms, gents. Now, Steve, have you got the other results there or the other fixtures there for the VPLW competition?
The VPLW. So aside from that game with Geelong Galaxy taking place, we've got some other exciting games coming up, which really looking forward to these ones next weekend. Whitehorse United is up against South Yarra, Melbourne Knights against the Casey Comets, Melbourne Uni against Boroondara Carey Eagles, and rounding out the round with Southern United versus Eltham Redbacks.
That's it. Well, gents, I think it's time that we're going to take a little bit of a break. When we return, we're going to have our first guest of the Extra Time show, and he's former Dandenong City coach, who's now the newly appointed coach of State League One side FC Strathmore, Micky Colina. He'll be joining us very, very shortly. Don't go away. You are tuning in to episode 88 of the Football Out West show.
You find authentic Maltese cuisine? At Georgie's on Vista, in the heart of Fraser Rise. We have a menu to suit everyone, which includes kids and seniors meals, and a cocktail list that will need you to come back several times to get through. Our specialty nights are a big hit. Tuesday is $20 Palmer night with a selection of Palmers to choose from. Kids eat free Wednesday night. With every paid adult meal, you get one free kids meal. Thursday is Maltese night. Check out the Maltese specials on our specials board. And Friday night we have happy hour between 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Be sure to book your table to avoid disappointment. Bookings can be made via our website, georgesonvista.com.au. See you at George's on Vista. You'll find us at Caroline Springs, George Cross.
Welcome back to the Football Out West show. It is episode 88 as we start to inch ever so closely to that milestone 100 episode. Gents, it's time to bring on our next guest, or our first guest for tonight. And it's an absolute pleasure having a real friend of the show, former Dandenong City NPL coach, and now he's the head coach of FC Strathmore. A tough gig because FC Strathmore are at the moment at the foot of the competition standings. Micky Colina. Micky, welcome to the Football Out West show. How are you?
Yeah, good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on.
Good evening, Mick.
How are you guys?
Yeah, absolute pleasure, mate. Now, how did your team go on the weekend? It was a battle of the cellar dwellers, taking on Corio Soccer Club at home at Strathnaver Reserve. Take us through that game yesterday.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, obviously both teams pretty desperate and driven to, notch up as many points as they can in their quest to survive the competition. Obviously, my first foray into the State One football, and look, I think we considered an early goal in the first half, bit of a wicked deflection, which was unfortunate and a little bit frustrating naturally to watch. But look, the boys were honest, and we readjusted a few things at half time, and the second half it was almost, it's all cliche stuff, but tale of two halves, I suppose. The second half was relatively, without being biased, almost one-way traffic. The boys were great in terms of the effort, endeavour. We obviously equalised through a set piece. Young Daniel Duzel with a great finish. Had a goal disallowed. I don't know. We don't have the luxury of VARs or God knows what, of course. But it was
not at that level, eh?
Yeah, so I had my opinion on whether it was offside or not from a free kick that the boy headed in. But anyway, hit the crossbar. Keeper made some great saves. To Cryo's credit, they were desperate and they defended well. We unfortunately just lacked a bit of quality and composure to reward ourselves. Look, it was a great 45 minutes. In the end, the points were shared. I look at it more as 2 points dropped rather than 1 point gain, to be honest, if I want to be brutally honest. But again, a lot of positives we can take out of that. And for the group of lads, I think just a bit more in terms of the belief that they can. We obviously, you always believe when you're in this position, you can talk about football quality, et cetera, but you've got to have the work rate and the fight. And if you don't possess that grounding, it's pointless looking for the other stuff first. Foremost, you've got to have that within your tank. And the boys showed that second half, which is great. So there's good things to build on. But at the end of the day, I think it's important for Strathmore that we just keep collecting points and try to bridge that gap between ourselves and, at this stage it's Clifton Hill, I believe, in the third last position. And then the gap opens up. It's not impossible, far from. I always say, they've sort of they got into State 1 by default to a certain degree last year when the COVID thing happened. And I think a team pulled out of the competition or got transferred across to the eastern side. And the Federation looked to fill that spot. And I think Strathmore was in a position, from my understanding, in the best position out of the other teams and got promoted. So they've always wanted to be State 1. In the State 1, I suppose that's what they were chasing, to be honest. Unfortunately for them, the pre-season, the coach H.E. Matkovic pulled the pin, with a couple of weeks before the season, and they lost some players, and sadly for them, they were in a bit of a spot in terms of preparation. And Brandon Santalab, to his credit, the character that he is, and obviously loves the club, put his hand up and sort of took a back seat in terms of the football side of things, in terms of him playing, I should say. But they're always looking to get somebody to fill the void. And they obviously were let's say probably underprepared for the competition. And those who know State 1, I've watched a few games from time to time, when you sort of had the free time to be able to go down and have a look at a game. But it's a pretty competitive competition. There's some very enthusiastic and driven clubs like Sunshine Georgie's and Essendon and Banyule and there's others that I haven't mentioned, but it's a very competitive league. And as we all know, there's some big plays going around the traps there. And
let's go through some. Let's recap and go through some of those results. Craig, you've got the list of results there that we've got at hand. In the State League 1 competition.
Yeah, I have. And you talk about big clubs. Big one yesterday, Sydenham Park, at home to Brimbank Stallions. Myself and Steve commentated on Brimbank in the Australia Cup earlier in the week against Moreland City, and they were fantastic. But I think that probably that game a little bit too many for them. And Sydenham Park, who have been on a great run over the last couple of weeks, brought in some new players into the club and come out 4-0. Yarraville, they drew 2-2 with Altona City, I believe, down there at McIver Reserve. Clifton Hills at home lost 3-0 to Essendon Rolls, another team who's obviously fighting at the top of the league. Obviously yourself there against Corio 1-1. Keeler Park 2-2. I was at the game. That was a tough old game as well last night down at Keeler Park Reserve. George Cross 2-0 down at one stage. Got it back to 2-2. Probably could have won the game in the end, but it was a 2-2 draw. And this afternoon, Whittlesea United held Banyule City 2-2. So at the top of the league there, it's points dropped for Caroline Springs. George Cross last night could have opened up a real gap at the top with Banyule drawing today. So, but it's very, very tight, as you said, Mick. It's a tough league. It's a baptism of fire, I suppose, for yourself coming in. But it's one hell of a league to get out of. That's for sure. Or stay in.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, as a competition, it is very competitive, and you just mentioned even Brimbank and Keilor. Some big clubs there that have got some good experienced players that, made their journey around the NPL scene for a while, and for whatever reasons, they either trimmed down their commitment to football. Some, for whatever reason, might have fallen out and get another opportunity, but definitely some good footballers with some good pedigree floating around the place, that's for sure.
Now, Mickey, it must have been a bit of a whirlwind for you yourself the last couple of weeks. What's it been like arriving at Strathmore, and how much time have you had to work with the players so far, and what's been those first impressions?
Well, look, firstly, as a club, I mean, to be honest, I would frequent the club over the years as a supporter and a spectator, of course, and have friends there, some that are playing, involved with the club. So as a club, great culture. The people, really, I enjoy every time I'm there, I'll be honest with you. With my time at Dandenong City, when I made the call, it's no secret that some of the people at the club that were close to me knew about some of the challenges that I was dealing with in terms of the travel and everything. And when, we sort of, I made the call and sort of become official that my last game was against Avondale. Look, Strathmore were very quick to message me on Saturday night that they wanted to have a chat sort of thing. And which I said, okay, you obviously from footballing point of view, you enjoy being involved. Like I said, the Dandy City thing, for me, I'll be honest with you, I really feel sorry that I couldn't stay. I feel sorry for the lads. I really feel that I let them down a little bit in sort of pulling the pin. But and the only sort of disappointment that we never got to see the squad that we assembled compete at that level. But for me personally, just the travel was taking its toll. It was just a really, really big ask, unfortunately. But, you did it with integrity and respect, and you've got friendships that you want to keep and maintain, and all credit to Dandy. I mean, they were understanding and were fine with it. But with the Strathmore thing, obviously, after I considered the opportunity, I wanted to look at what they want to do and just the realities of where they're at. And, after we agreed, yes, let's give this a shot. Tuesday was my first session there, and obviously Thursday, I did go watch them play against Brimbank. They lost 3-0, as you know. And, I don't think we're looking at the game, it was a 3-0 game. I mean, they were honest, they worked hard, but I think, as I said earlier, they just lacked a bit of quality and discipline and focus in some moments. And, teams like Brimbank will punish you, and that's what they did. But the boys were good this week. Obviously, naturally, I'm guessing a new coach walks in, players are going to step up and they're going to sort of obviously try to put their best show on. But all the boys, we've got a good room. We've got a good room of players. I've got to give them that. And the honesty in terms of how they apply themselves throughout the 2 sessions, and even the boys that got selected for yesterday's game, I can't fault the honesty, I'll be honest with you. But look, as a club and what they want to do, it was really refreshing, and I did enjoy it, I'll be honest with you. And the fact that it's 20 minutes from home is a small bonus also.
Perfect.
That certainly helps. Well, I'm sure over the next couple of weeks, Mick, there'll be a first win, and I'm sure you'll be the first person in the change rooms with your drum set, and you'll be making a bit of a noise down there with your drum set, mate. So
I certainly hope so. Look, I mean, they're good. They're good people. They're good lads, and I really hope that I can do my little part and sort of bring them some joy as a unit. But at the end of the day, you're only one individual, and it is a collective, of course. And like I said earlier, they're realistic. They know what their goal is, and they want to try to survive in this competition because they've been given the opportunity by whatever reason. But regardless, they're in there. And they also, like I said, they're honest about it. If they don't succeed, I mean, they do have a vision. They want to get back in there, but we're not going to think about that. It's all about surviving this competition, doing everything within our power to do that. And that's all we're driven to achieve on a week-to-week basis right now,
Good on you, mate. We're going to have to leave it there. Unfortunately, we do have to cut it short. Mick, thank you very much for joining us and wishing you and FC Strathmore all the very, very best. And look forward to maybe hearing from you later in the season with some good positive news from Strathmore Reserve.
Pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me on, and well done on the show. As always, you guys doing a great job, and look forward to being part of it some stage down the track. So thank you very much.
Good on you.
Cheers, Mickey. All the best here.
All right, gents, we're going to take a very, very quick break. It's the end of extra time, and we're gonna snazzy ourselves up, freshen ourselves up, because it's time for the press box, and we've got a real female football focus, paying homage to Female Football Week, which just finished, and also indeed Mother's Day, which was on last week, and we've got the coach of the Melbourne Victory Women's team, Jeff Hopkins. He's ready to join us. He's in the green room. So, folks, don't go away. Grab yourself a drink, go to the toilet, do what you got to do. Be back for the press box starting very, very shortly. Thank you very much for joining Football Out West Show.
in the Football Show. Go on!
Big
How good
shout
was
out.
our day yesterday?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Certainly made my day. The Werribee City fans, they are called the Werribee Boys or the Werribee Ultras. I'm not too sure, but they certainly added a little bit of colour to yesterday's game at Galvin Park between the NPL 2 side, Werribee City and Moreland City. But it's the ladies we're talking about in the press box this week. Female Football Week, Craig, finished just basically today, I think, was the official conclusion of it. And with the World Cup next year, a lot of focus now is on the ladies, a lot on the women. And tonight, as our special guest, we've got someone very, very central to all it all. Would you like to introduce our guest, Craig?
Certainly, it's a pleasure to. He's been on the show once before, I believe. Fellow Welshman, head of the Melbourne Victory Women's A-League team, Jeff Hopkins. Good evening, Jeff.
Hey guys, how are you?
Very well,
Good,
thanks.
Jeff.
Very
Good.
well,
Great
thanks.
to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us. And what have you been doing since you've had a little bit of a break with the A-League Women finals happening recently?
Look, I think obviously once the season's over, there's a fair bit to do in terms of reviewing the season, speaking to all the players, almost just going through the season with the players, having exit interviews. A lot of the players are moving on to other clubs, other states, other countries. So that took a fair bit of time and effort. But also, I've been working with the Afghan women's team as well, which has been really really good. Taking up a lot of my time, but really rewarding as well. So, yeah, I'm keeping myself pretty busy. That's for sure.
Well, Jeff, I just want to start off. We'll talk about obviously your success this season in the league, but I want to start off. Obviously, it's Female Football Week this week, and Football Federation and Football Australia do a great job of promoting it. And from yourself, obviously played men's professional football back in the day. What was the reason for you getting involved in the women's program? How did all that come about first before we go on to the other stuff? Always keen to.
I guess it started 13, 14 years ago when I was up in Queensland. I was working with elite boys at the time, and I was given the opportunity to go into and work with the women at the Queensland Academy of Sport. I had a look at the program, and the program was probably at a different level to what the boys was at up there. The boys was a youth program, but the women's program up there was an international program which had funding from the Olympic Association, from FFA, and from the Queensland Academy of Sport. And it was I just at first I thought it was a really good step forward for me to hopefully take my coaching to another level. And as I kind of got into it as well, I kind of got a real feeling for the women's game. And yeah, I've always been one that's been one that really has got a good feeling for the underdog. But the more I was involved in the game, and at that time, the more I kind of saw these players that were giving so much to the game and were getting very little back in return. And yeah, it was it's kind of that kind of drew me into the game and really got me really passionate about the game. But yeah, since then I've worked with the Academy of Sport, with Queensland Raw, with Brisbane Raw, and with Melbourne Victory. I've done a little bit of work with the national teams, with the under-20 girls as well. So yeah, I've seen the game from a lot of different levels, and I've seen the game really move on as well. So it's been an interesting time and quite a rewarding time as well.
And Jeff, did you ever think that you would be able to go back to back so well as you did in the last 12 months with all the challenges that have taken place over that time? And the girls really hit form this season at the end of the A-League Women's just at the right time. And it's almost something that the boys are mirroring now in the A-League Men's as well. So maybe you're setting the tone for them. But did you think that it would be something you'll be able to do to go back to back and really become the dominant force in the women's competition this season again?
Yeah, look, it was definitely something we planned to do. We came out of last season and it was really funny actually because we finished the season and we won the competition, and it was a great feeling at the club. But at the end of the season, we thought we're never going to have a season like that again, and it's just so good to get that season out of the way and with all the success. But we kind of said back to normal next year. This is going to be great just to get back into a normal thing. And it's probably this year was a lot more disrupted for us. We had a good start to the season. Then we had a real roadblock with a couple of real big defeats, and then we got contacted COVID through the whole of the group, and we missed 3 weeks of football, and then it was the good start that we had. We then had to play basically half our season in a month, and it was a really challenging time for us. And look, it was a tough time for us, but also we knew that if we could get through those 7 games in 20 days or 21 days, that there was a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and if we could get ourselves into the finals, then we'd give ourselves a really good chance of. There wasn't anyone that we really feared, or we felt that on our best day we couldn't beat. So it was pretty disjointed season. There was some ups and downs, but it turned out even through the finals we played really well away in Adelaide against the team that had beaten us 3-0 2 weeks before. We outplayed them. We outplayed City in the semi-final, and then it was almost like the complete opposite from the year before, the grand final against Sydney, where I felt that we dominated the game and couldn't score, and we stole the game in the 120th minute. This year, Sydney were well on top of us. They dominated. We basically had our backs to the walls from kind of right the way through the whole of the game basically, and some last ditch defending and a great display from our goalkeeper kept us in the game. And then we were able, always the way that we play, we are always likely to score. We grabbed a couple of goals and then held on at the end. So it was quite a roller coaster season, but it turned out just perfect in the end. And just to answer your question, it was something that we thought about and we talked about at the beginning of the season, and as the season rolled on, we talked about it a little bit more, that back to back.
How good was Casey Dumont in that final?
Incredible.
Jeff? Because I remember watching it, and the weather was chucking it down. You were there in your nice suit, and you were getting absolutely hammered with the rain, and the game was just so fun. And I was lucky; I was up at George Cross just a few weeks before that, where you played Sydney as well, and that was a great game of football. And then you watch this, and it was 100%, 100 mile an hour, left to right, back and forth. Casey Dumont was superb in that game, wasn't she?
She was, yeah. Look, she's been very consistent all season, and look, I've worked with Casey since she was a young player up in Brisbane at the QAS, so I kind of know what she's all about. I got a huge amount of faith in her, and look, she in the big games especially, she definitely stands up, and look, on another day with a different keeper, it would have been a different result, I'm sure. But look, I look at her. I look at the performance of our back four. Just the way that we he just managed somehow to stay in the game, and it's when you come out of those periods when you're really under the cosh, and you come out of them, and it kind of gives you a little bit of or a lot of confidence that that you're still in the game. And it's funny, I could see when we scored our first goal, you could almost see the senior players looking around thinking, here we go again. And I think our players sensed that as well, and that's one of the things we talked about at half time as well. So look, the performance of the players was just amazing. Just I say they'd been through it 2 or 3 weeks before, and they'd had to dig really deep. And you mentioned the game against Sydney at George Cross. It was we were kind of dead and buried there, and then it was in the middle of that run of 7 games in 20 days, or towards the end of it actually, and I wasn't sure if we actually had anything left in the tank. And we dug very deep in that game and managed to come back and score 2 late goals to draw the game. So it's
well, I've got a couple more questions on that.
In that game, we showed it all season. So that's
Well, we're talking with Jeff Hopkins, the head coach of the Melbourne Victory Women's team. And speaking of George Cross, they are the major sponsor of the Football Out West show. We're going to take a very, very quick commercial break and a few messages from our major sponsor, the George Cross Football Club, home of the amazing George's on Vista Bistro. Don't go away, folks, and we'll continue chatting with Jeff after this break.
George's on Vista is in the heart of Fraser Rise. You'll find us at Caroline Springs, George Cross. Looking for a bit of fun with your meals? Tuesday night is bingo night. Bingo books are $2, eyes down at $7. And we have a special bingo menu for you to choose from, so be sure to get in early and grab a bite to eat beforehand. Friday night is poker night. Registration is from 6:30pm, with poker starting at 7:30pm. Why not join us beforehand for happy hour? Kicks off at 5:30. We're also on Uber Eats, so you can enjoy your favourite Georgie's meals in the comfort of your own home. Find us on the app. Dining in? Be sure to book your table to avoid disappointment. Bookings can be made via our website, georgiesonvista.com.au.
Well, we're back with the Football Out West show. It is episode 88, and we're now in the midst of the press box. And with us tonight is Jeff Hopkins, the head coach of the Melbourne Victory Women's team. Jeff, thanks for joining us. Craig, you had a couple more questions to ask Jeff.
Yeah, I do. Jeff, I'm big on culture in the change rooms, and you've obviously spoken about, your group of players that you had this season and how they dug deep when things probably weren't going the right way for you throughout the season. When you're recruiting and you say you're going to go through, obviously, I would imagine that you're going to go through a recruiting process now with a lot of players leaving the club. How do you look for those players? Do you look for their ability, or do you look at the person first and then the ability, or is it a mixture of both?
Look, it is definitely a mixture of both, but I think the starting point is the player. Is that player the right player for us? Will they fit into our playing style, our game model? But that's a starting point. And then we start to dig a little bit deeper and find about the character, about what they've done in the past. We try and speak to a number of people, as many people as we can, because it's. I think there's a lot of players out there that you could drop into your team that could kind of do a job and can maybe fit the criteria of the footballer that you're looking for, and that is, we are a football club, we're a football team, and that's the most important thing. But I think just as important is the person as well. And we do a lot of we do kind of recruit character as well as technical ability, and whether that player can do the role that we want out on the field as well. So very, very important for us.
So how does your recruitment start now, Jeff? Obviously, I'm not sure how many players you've got leaving, but how does it start for you guys now? Have you got some scouts out there that are looking? Do you have a list of players that you've already highlighted?
Yeah, look, I think I guess the main thing is that that long-term planning is really important. So we've already got players on multi-year contracts, and we've started doing that over the past 2 or 3 seasons. I know when I first came into the club, and I think it's the same with most A-League women's or W League back then clubs, that players were just on annual contracts, 1-year contracts, and you'd come in as a new head coach, or even if you'd been at there the season before, and you basically got to recruit a whole team. You don't know whether your players will be leaving. You don't know whether they'll be re-signing. So one of the things we started to do there was just put in some more long-term planning. So we get our key players and key positions locked in over 1, 2, and 3 years. We're also looking at young players as well. So players that are probably maybe a year off playing, or 2 years off playing in the side. For instance, someone like an Alana Murphy or a Paige Zoyce, we've got them on multi-year contracts, and I expect them. They both played some decent game time this season. I expect them to play more next year, and maybe break into the side and become regulars either next year or the season after. So there's that side of it, and then obviously players that did really well for us this year. We've re-signed a lot of players, so we're only in. If you add up the players we've got on multi-years, the young players, the players that have re-signed, we're mostly only looking for maybe 3 or 4 players to refresh and rejuvenate the squad that we've got, because we feel that we have got a strong side and a strong squad. But it's what it's like. I think it's every year you need to just freshen things up a little bit. Throw a few challenges in there for 1 or 2 players, bring 1 or 2 new faces in to change the dynamic around the place. And yeah, that's kind of where we are at the moment. With we're just talking to 1 or 2 players at the moment to bring in to add to the strength of the squad.
Jeff, it'd be fascinating to try and articulate how to get that balance right of the experienced players and the young players, particularly in women's football. But I will move on, and we'll touch on the news about the Afghan women's team that Melbourne Victory is looking after this season. And there's been, certainly within the football community, a lot of positive stories about that. And it's been something that's been covered by journalists from overseas. Has it got enough coverage that it deserves for in Australia? And how are you finding the experience of Melbourne Victory running that program this season?
Yeah, look, I first got involved with them during the season. Our director of football, John DeLuca, he's very involved. He was very involved with the club, reaching out to them and helping and getting involved as much as we can. Yeah, look, I've just come back from the game actually this afternoon. We've played this afternoon. But yeah, look, it's been for me.
What was the score? How did you guys go?
We won 2-1. It was a really good game as well, really tight game. So,
and that was against. Was that against? Just trying to have a look here if I can see the score.
Yeah.
Sydenham Park. Yep, we've got a couple of Sydenham Park people on the chat at the moment. Actually,
yeah, they're a really good, very good side. And I'm pretty sure they were at the top of the league and unbeaten before we played them today. And the game could have actually gone either way. It was a very, very tight game. So our girls played really well. And yeah, look, it's been a real challenge around the, just the cultural side of things and the language barrier, but it's also been really rewarding and really good fun. They're an amazing bunch of women, a bunch of girls. They've been through some things that you just can't imagine over here. I'd say I've got a daughter who's played football over here, and my daughter's basically had been able to do whatever she's wanted to do at whatever time she's wanted to do. And some of the stories you hear of these girls, what they've been through, and how they turn up, and they're so bright and cheery, and they're happy. It kind of puts life in perspective to me, for sure. So I'm loving working with them. They're a fantastic group of players, and they're really very, very competitive bunch of players as well. And I'm really loving working with them.
Well, one of our regular listeners, Santino Mamone, has asked us, how's your Persian going?
Not as good as their English, because I just can't. I've picked up one or two words, and I mispronounce everything. I mispronounce their names, and that's what gives them the
giggles,
more of a laugh than anything. But what's really got me is that I think in the first week that I took them, that was, I think, just before the final started in the A-League Women's, and our goalkeeper speaks really good English, and she was acting as an interpreter. So everything I said, she'd interpret. But now it's, I get away with maybe half the sentences that I speak, that I need to look at her and say, okay, Fatima, you interpret for me. And then, because all the players are learning English, they're all going to English school, English language school. They're all studying. So, it's just their lives are pretty full at the moment. They're really pushing hard with their football. They're working or they're studying, and they're going to English language school. And every week the language skills of the girls are getting better and better and better. It's
And the football must be a real opportunity for them to just really let their head down and just to really relax and then take their mind off other things as well. Jeff, we've got a couple of people tuning in who know you very, very well. And we are going to be speaking with the young Matildas head coach, Leah Blaney, very, very shortly. And she's just joined us in the green room. So we're going to have to get through this very quickly. Mark Hasser from the Gippsland region, he says they had the pleasure working with Jeff in the NSL at Gippsland Falcons, Eastern Pride. Fantastic coach, gentleman, great all-round bloke. Not to mention a super ambassador for the women's game. And the Caroline Springs George Cross president, someone very well known to this program and a great supporter of this program, Mark Sultana, says, had the privilege meeting Jeff, great ambassador for the women's game and huge supporter for grassroots football. Mate, on that note, it's been an absolute pleasure having a true ambassador of the women's game here, and we hope to join you. Hope to have you join us a little, maybe later on in the year, and would certainly love to. There's so much we'd love to chat to you, and we apologise for it being so rushed tonight, but we'd love to have you on the show again somewhere down the track, Jeff.
Terrific. Thanks for having me. You know me, Craig. I love a chat as well. So any time.
All good. Well, we'll be in touch with you, mate. And thanks for giving us your Sunday evening, and all the best in your pre-season.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. All the best.
Thanks, mate. Cheers, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Jeff Hopkins, the head coach of the Melbourne Women's Victory team. Folks, we will be taking a very, very quick break. When we return, it is the head coach of the young Matildas, the national under-21 side, Leah Blaney. I'm really looking forward to this catch-up as part of Female Football Week, and Leah will give us a really good insight into a female footballer who is now coaching at an elite level. So can't wait for this one. Folks, don't go away. Hang around. We'll be back very, very shortly. You're tuning in to the Football Out West Show. It is episode 88. Don't go away.
Looking for a space for your next function? At George's on Vista, our function room caters for all types of functions. Milestone birthdays, special religious occasions, work functions, hens or bachelor nights, baby showers, or whatever reason you decide is a good idea to get together with family and friends. Contact our friendly staff who will help you put together a menu that will suit your special occasion. Inquiries can be made via our website, georgesonvista.com.au. George is on Vista, in the heart of Fraser Rise. You'll find us at Caroline Springs, George Cross.
Welcome back to the Football Out West show, and 2 out of the 3 Musketeers are here. Steve Curtin just seems to have gone somewhere.
To the fridge, I would imagine.
To the fridge, I think I'd say that's probably the case now. Now, Craig, football or female football week has just concluded. We've had 10 or so days of a really, all sorts of activities, all sorts of ceremonies, celebrations of the game. But really, at the end of the day, putting aside, I guess, all the fluff and all of that, it's all about the development of the female game. And we do talk a lot about participation, but we sometimes lose sight of the elite side of things. And really, we need to get that elite side really, really down pat. And I guess our next guest is someone who's working at that very topic. Would you like to introduce our next guest?
Yeah, it gives me great pleasure to announce we've got Leah Blaney, who's the Matildas under-20 Young Matildas head coach. Matildas. Good evening, Leah. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, guys. It's a pleasure to join you, and for those listening at home as well.
Leah, we talked about Female Football Week, and we've just spoken to Jeff Hopkins, the head coach of the Melbourne Victory, and a great women's ambassador. But at the end of the day, the way I look at it is we're not going to become a strong international country as far as female football until we start to generate female coaches. Now, you are one of those, and coaching at the elite level, and it's great to see we need more of that. Tell us a bit about your coaching journey and how that's developed and how you've arrived now at the Young Matildas.
Yeah, we're certainly starting to see more strong female coaches on the scene in the current landscape, and it's definitely an area we want to further develop. In terms of my transition from playing to coaching, I can't say when I was a player I ever really thought I was going to be a coach. It wasn't something that I knew was going to happen, but once I put one foot in that camp, and eventually I've fallen in love with different coaching roles, and it's something that I'm highly ambitious. And for any females coaching out there, or administrators, or anybody who's really involved in the game at any level, it's just something that you fall in love with, and it becomes a passion. And then I guess it's kind of not like work, right? It's something you show up every day and you just love doing.
And Leah, thanks again for joining us, and just wanted to chat a little bit about your experience as a player and perhaps how they've shaped your style as a coach, and in particular, maybe the cultural differences of going over to the United States and playing some college football in New England, in Connecticut, and in Boston, and then also in some European action as well in Scandinavia. What are the big differences that you found going over to America from Australia, I guess, first of all?
Yeah, look, so I originally went over to the US and I went into the college setup, which at that time was really the only avenue to balance my academic endeavors as well as my footballing ambition. Now there's a multitude of avenues. There's universities within Australia that are very, very supportive of football pathways. So it's definitely a different landscape now. But in terms of that opportunity that I took at the time, it helps me balance both. As I said, I always had strong ambition to do well academically, and I did my degree over there while playing football in college, which led to me being picked up in the professional league in the US, which was a fantastic experience to play and train under a variety of coaches that presented me with different styles. So I think the strongest point in that player to coach transition has been exposure to world football as a player from a young age. So I was in our Matildas. So obviously world football exposure happened at 16 as a player. And then throughout my college experiences, playing in the professional league under different coaches, playing in Sweden, and then returning home and experiencing a wide variety of coaching styles of people I've worked with directly in professional development settings or now in my employment settings. I think it helps contribute to a bit of a really well-rounded development pathway.
Craig. Oh, we've lost him again.
Oh, no.
Got to stop turning my mic off, haven't I?
I was about to ask Steve to do his best Craig impersonation and ask a question, but we don't like his Welsh accent. No, Craig, over to you.
Now, obviously, Leah, from a young Matilda's point of view, and there's, as you said, there's lots of young, really talented young women coming around. You've got the Women's World Cup that I suppose by default we've been lucky enough to get into in Costa Rica. Is it later on in the year?
Yep.
Correct.
Costa Rica onto the year. Now, the last time the young Matildas qualified was in 2006.
Correct.
I think you played an important part in that one, didn't you?
Yeah, correct. I was a part of that squad. We played in Russia, and the previous one was held in Thailand. So it's definitely an exciting time for football in this country to be involved in our U20 Women's World Cup. We've got the 23 World Cup on our hands, and our Para Matildas and our Pararoos are actually playing in their own World Cups as we speak, which is an exciting time for football across every avenue.
As we can see on the screen, we've got the fixtures there coming up. It's a tough group: Costa Rica, Spain, Brazil, and of course the young Matildas in Group A. It all kicks off on Wednesday, the 10th of August, our time, local time, and it's all the games will be on SBS Australia. Then that's against Costa Rica, the home side. Then we're taking on Brazil and then Spain. A tough group indeed. Who in your opinion is the teams to really look out for in that group? And don't say all of them, because that's the easy answer.
That's an easy answer. Yeah. But I'd be naive to not say there's an easy group when you go to a World Cup.
Yeah, World Cup. Exactly.
That's right.
Every team is competitive. Every team almost presents a different style of football, which for any youth player across the world, what a fantastic opportunity to experience when you look at the big picture of what football is and where we want to see these girls end up. Us playing the opening game against Costa Rica, I was obviously at the draw recently, and within the room, the envy of the other nations that we were going to play, potentially in front of 20, 30,000 fans who are all against you because you're on the other side of the world. What a phenomenal experience for this group. It's second to none.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and you've got some players within that group that have had Matilda's experience before. Obviously, Courtney Nevin, Kyra Connie Cross, Mary Fowler, Briley Henry. How important is it having those that have had the Matilda's experience around the younger girls that haven't had that experience?
They certainly become key, as is any environment. When you have players who bring in experience, it just brings in that levelness of cool head, of being there before to a degree. Again, a Youth World Cup it's different to maybe playing in the senior team. It presents different pressures where now maybe you're expected to be a leader in a group. So it certainly comes with its pressures, but I definitely welcome that experience into our squad as well.
And Leah, what are the challenges of your particular role being an under-20s national team coach? And I guess, how do you break down your time and your tasks that are required of you? And what do you really love about it that inspires you to go to bed each day and do the great job that you do?
I've definitely got an excellent support staff around us, from our kit person to our assistant coach and everybody in the organisation in the background that wakes up every day in their respective roles and is there for the young Matildas group. So we're currently in camp at the moment. We've been in camp now since last Monday. We'll finish camp tomorrow with a game, and everybody's working tirelessly to make sure that we can put ourselves in the best position that these girls leave this camp building upon the football knowledge that they have, and hopefully better people as well as better athletes. So the key really is who you surround yourself with, I believe.
And how often do you get the camps?
Sorry, Craig, go.
How often do you get the camps? Will there be several more now before the World Cup starts? Is that the plan?
Yeah, there's definitely an increase in planned activity. We're fortunate enough to play 2 internationals against New Zealand recently, back in camp again now, and then hopefully an upcoming one very soon. We live in a country that geographically we're so far away from others who can play friendly games and whatnot, but we have to look at that as an opportunity and something that we have to work within, so as opposed to an excuse. So that's something that we're currently working on, where how can we provide high quality games for this playing group relative to what our opponents are able to achieve right now.
Leah, your job is to deal with young players and develop young players at the elite level. And just last week, we obviously received the good news that the A-League Women's is expanding to 11 clubs, with Western United granted a license for next season. And we also spoke early in the program the prospect of the NPLW Victoria competition expanding from 8 to possibly 12 teams next year. All of this expansion, that personally in my view is long overdue, but this expansion, is this going to be able to really give a lot of those younger players more of a chance playing senior football and at an elite level?
It absolutely is. And if we look across both our A-Leagues this year, A-League men's, women's, we're seeing an increase in match minutes for our players under 21, under 23. So expansion of the team's really excited and welcome Western United on board. It's fantastic. Hopefully we see more teams, full home and away. That's where we should be heading. And the more opportunities for our domestic players, the more teams we have, then we can add in more internationals, which increases the quality of the league, which we need. You need international players playing in our domestic league. It's exciting.
And Leah, with our national teams and our club teams and so forth within Australia, do you think we'll see more young female coaches like yourself coming through, and hopefully we'll see the A-League Women's a bit lot more female head coaches like we maybe don't see at the moment and perhaps should?
I really think we will. There's been some excellent initiatives. I myself went through the FA Female Mentor Program when I first started coaching, and that's something that really helped propel me in my career, mostly just in terms of me seeing other visible female coaches and actually seeing a pathway there. And I think the more visibility we can give of our female coaches that are doing a good job across the country and across the world, then that's going to empower others to know that there is a pathway there and there is an opportunity.
Excellent. Yeah.
Now, obviously, next year, it's the big one, the 2023 Women's World Cup. How big is that for Australia and women's football, and what more can we do? Because I still feel we are a year away, but it is only a year, and that year will come around very, very quickly. And before we know it, we'll have 32 countries knocking on our door. What can we do what can we do better to promote that World Cup?
Yeah,
or are we doing enough?
No, look, we're on the right track. I attended the last World Cup that was held in France as a scout. So I'm walking. It's a different kind of role where you walk to the game, almost a part of the general public through the streets and those kind of things. And to see the cafes, the restaurants, the pubs around the stadiums absolutely packed. To see people marching the streets with dressed head to toe in Netherlands attire. I hope we see the green and gold army that's expanded across our country. Whether it's a game in Adelaide, whether it's a game in Brisbane, a game in Melbourne, Sydney. We need our sporting community to really get behind this World Cup. Whatever sports code you're involved in, the excitement and the atmosphere of a World Cup is just another level, and that's on us.
And maybe that'll change when the draw's made. I think October the 11th. I think the announcement was this week that the draw's to be done. Maybe when that draw's done and everybody can see who's coming and who's playing who, maybe that'll start to drive a little bit more excitement around the country. Because I still feel that we're probably not pushing it the way that we should. But that's my own opinion. Don't start me off.
Leah, one of our viewers, Mark Sultana, he's the president of the Caroline Springs George Cross, and a club that really and a major sponsor of our show. He's a club that's really given female football a big boost up at the Georges on Vista City ground. His question, Leah, do you let go sometimes at the group, or do you keep calm? That brings me to that next point.
This might be a loaded question, by the way, Tom.
So, when we talk to a lot of male coaches of women's teams, a lot of them sort of see their role almost in a fatherly role, where they try and nurture a lot of the players, and they sort of tend to appear a little bit more emotional or kind of at that level. And I know, speaking to a lot of coaches who have coached men's teams and women's teams, they say you do have to approach it a little bit differently. And probably the one overriding factor is that the girls do listen, whereas the boys don't necessarily listen to the coach. Being a female, coaching a females team, Leah, what's your style, and can you kind of do it a little bit differently to the blokes, or is it very, very similar in the style and the way you execute your instructions and what you're not?
Yeah, look, I also work in a sports high school environment where I coach a lot of young boys and almost young men, given that some of them are 18, 19 years of age. I think consistency is key. So in terms of creating a nurturing, supportive environment, that always has to exist. And that's how you're actually going to get the best out of a playing group over a longer period of time and those kind of things. So, in terms of, is there a standard within a group? Absolutely, regardless of whether it's boys and girls. So I think that consistency is key. It depends, I guess, what you would call what's the language you use? Leah, do you let go sometimes at the group? I would say absolutely not. I think your ability as a coach to keep composure under pressure moments and those kind of things is probably what helps create group buy-in, whether it's male or female. So when things aren't going well, they actually need you to be composed and calm, because they're definitely not in a position where they're feeling that way if things aren't going well and it's a high pressure moment or those kind of things.
Fantastic. So one last question from me. Sam Kerr, obviously the player that everybody talks around here in Australia and in the UK, obviously winning the award that she did. Who's the next young Matilda that's going to be the next Sam Kerr that's going to be everybody question. Needs to watch the space for? We're putting you on the spot now, Lee. You can't be in camp.
I love the hard questions.
Yeah, you can't be in camp and not come.
I mentioned that word consistency, and I will be consistent that until these young Matildas are playing on the world stage under the kind of pressure that Sam Kerr plays, I think it's early days to call any of them the next Sam Kerr. However, if I look at our current Matilda squad and I look at somebody who's 21 years of age, Ellie Carpenter, what a phenomenal young player. But there's certainly others that I hope to see starting for Chelsea week in, week out. I think she scored a goal against every team in the league over there at the moment. So any of our young strikers in camp, I hope that's what they aspire to.
Oh, brilliant answer. A good question. Great question, Craig, and a brilliant answer, Leah. Thank you very much for joining us. It was a really good insight into, we often talk with community coaches, but it was great to also have an elite coach tell us a little bit about the development of some of those players as well. We're going to have to cut it short, unfortunately. We are really, really into our extra time here on the press box. Leah, thank you so much for joining us, and wishing you and the young Matildas all the very, very best at the upcoming Junior World Cup, or the Youth World Cup in Costa Rica.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, Leah. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Leah. All the best.
Bye-bye. Good night. And that was Leah Blaney, the coach of the young Matildas. Geez, we had a really good program tonight, gents. I'm knackered. I'm all footballed out, and it's time to have a bit of an early night before we tackle the week ahead. But a huge week and a huge show next weekend, no doubt. Gents, good night, and thank you to everyone for being a part of tonight's show.
Thanks, everyone, and good night.
Stay safe. We'll see you all next week.
Good night.